to express some of my desires for the law department. No secret, I've always felt like maybe we should go back to contracting out with the law department, and I think that that's what we'd like to do, but we'll talk about that later on. What I would like to do today is to appoint an acting director of the law department. We need that transition period time so we can learn what's going on now, what's going to be happening in the future. If you will notice, Mr. Paul Wilbur is with us in the audience today. I have decided to appoint Paul as the acting director of the law department. And with that, I would like to go over some of the facts and figures that we have. And I have Michelle in this, I have Leslie here, and of course Wayne is here to help you on any questions that you may have. But I would also like to have Paul come up in a few minutes just to give you a little bit more about himself, about his firm, and how we hope to do this. So at this point in time, would you go ahead and start with the figures? You want to, Paul can come up and talk, okay? Yeah.
I know a number of you, for those that I don't know. Paul Wilbur.
Good morning.
Paul. Just a little bit about the law firm. There's a resume, I think, in your package there. There's 6 attorneys, 10 staff. 4 of the attorneys are involved in local government. I've been involved almost my whole legal career in local government in one way or another. The various towns that we've represented, we've even done some work for Somerset County, are listed here. We've been involved, if you look at page 2, in a number of different areas that local governments are involved in. Just in my case, I probably have over 30 years of doing local government work. And the resume is a quick summary of some of the highlights of all the different areas that we have worked in. Our plan is to charge an hourly rate of $170 for all the lawyers. There would not be any difference between the lawyers, and to do the legal work for the county.
When you say an hourly rate of $170 for all attorneys, I don't understand.
There would be 4 attorneys involved, and $170 would be the rate, as opposed to having a graduated rate of an older attorney, more experienced attorney charging a higher hourly rate, and a less experienced attorney charging a lower rate.
But you're discussing Mr. Wilbur as being acting county attorney.
Yes. But we're also presenting to you our idea of going ahead and why we feel it's advantageous to do a contracting out rather than hiring in-house.
Good, Mr. Wilbur, sorry.
So the idea is that hours will be kept and billed monthly to the county at that, what we call a blended hourly rate. And I think that we're trying to find a way by meeting with the various department heads to make the services to the county as efficient and as effective as we can. I know that you're all concerned about the dollars, the budget dollars that go into this, and we hope to be able to address that. Be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Well, at this time, maybe Michelle can get us into the why that I feel that this is going to be cost beneficial to the county. So, Michelle from HR department.
Actually, we made this packet. I can go through the packet. I work with the finance department and pull in actual figures from the general ledger to support this proposal. The second page in your packet looks at the actual cost, and everything is supported in additional pages. Here we look at the salary and benefits. We received a copy of the proposal in which it does not include our benefit cost, which currently is at $127,000 a year and has increased since 2016. Naturally, benefits are going up each year. The operating budget, what we did was we looked at the actual operating budget, which is, I believe, on page 5. This is directly out of our Munis system. We looked at the actual advertising, dues and subscriptions, everything that would be considered overhead, and took out the contractual services, as we did not want to duplicate any vendors that we would have paid outside of the law department that we pulled from inquiry in the GL. Back to page 2, we looked at legal expenses by vendor, which you can find the supporting document to these figures on page 3. All of these legal fees are not necessarily paid out of the legal department. Some of them hit various departments, maybe finance, maybe HR, but this gave a snapshot of the actual cost. Certain costs, such as bonds, the sale of bonds and so forth, we backed out because that is a specialization that will continue to incur. But based on the total figures, the total cost of salary and operating, if you can see projected for 2016 is $483, and that's not including any FOP negotiations or anything that may be added on later in the year, to the actual cost of $601,834 last year. Broken down to hourly rate based on a 2,080-hour work year, and prorated based on holidays, it's $289.34 per hour, and what Mr. Wilbur is proposing is $170 per hour, and it is prorated for any paralegal work. So that is the highest cost, including all overhead. The proposed contractual full-time, based on that, a full-time work year, his proposal would be $351,730, which is projected as a savings on prior year discounted for some of the specializations of $190, $399.60 in 2015, and possibly $131, which could be pinpointed back to the benefits for this or future years going forward. Furthermore, we did analysis on page 4 in your packet, and you will see that we have the same salary and benefits costs. They're fixed. They're your salary and your benefits. And we looked at the operating and overhead contractual services in which most departments pay any type of legal services out of those budgets. I think a difference is that we took the revised budget, so when they had to come back to council and ask for an increase in legal fees to cover various aspects, maybe FOP. Based on this analysis on a single department and not countywide, for last year, we're looking at $526, a difference in the hourly rate of $83.18 per hour, and an estimated difference of $174.87. So I hope that summarizes. I'm open for Leslie and myself are open for any questions.
So, just seeing this for the first time, this assumes that there is no county legal department at all. It's all contracted, that all staff is contract staff. We don't have anything in-house.
Phasing out the legal department, yes.
Okay. All right, just clarify.
Now, let me clarify also, we don't plan on, nobody's going to be losing a job. We're hoping to use them into different departments and work within the county. So I'm not saying we're going to cut out the 3 remaining jobs that we have in the law department. So, but that will be worked out through Mr. Wilbur's office and the county. Once we find out what the workload is going to be, we may have one stay right here. He may decide to keep one. That's all down the road. But the big savings, of course, is the benefits. Over almost $140,000 a year we'll be saving in pension, OPEB costs, insurance, that type of thing.
If you're transferring the existing individuals in the law department to other departments, how are you going to be saving money? They're still going to be
We have
employed.
different vacancies within the county government now. I mean, there'll be different positions.
What
such as your office
what
needs.
positions would these individuals take?
We would look at it through
Attorneys.
the transition. We would look at it
Attorneys.
for the transition.
What
We
position?
have one attorney left, and that would be Ms. Harris.
Understood. And without going into a closed session, I mean, what position would an attorney take in Wicomico County? I mean, obviously, it's been thought through. I'm just curious as to what position this would be.
There is the position still open within the county council budget of an attorney. You know, so there are things that we need to go in closed session and talk about, but this is the idea I'm bringing forward to think that we're going to save $150,000 a year in benefits. So
Has this been reviewed with the law department?
I'm not sure why I would need to go through the law department to review this, John.
Because they're the employees that are being impacted by this change. I was just curious as to what their take on it was, as to what their idea might be of being displaced to other departments.
Be glad to speak to them, but you know, at this point in time, it's the executive decision on.
I
on
just
how-
was wondering whether or not, as
I have- no,
executive.
I have not spoke to them. I mean, I know you've interviewed part of them for your office, you know, so, but nonetheless, you know, this is the executive's decision on how he wants to form his law department. The charter says that we will have a Department of Law, and we will still have a Department of Law.
Question I had, Ms. Howarth, as an acting department head or the acting county attorney, does that person then become an employee of Wicomico County? Is that a prerequisite of an acting head of the law department?
That's something I'd have to research, whether that person would have to be a county employee or not to be the acting.
Okay, so it's still kind of up in the air. Okay.
Because that is a department head position.
Correct, yeah, the county attorney is also the department head of Department of Law.
So it's a county
One and the
position,
same.
so it sounds like it'd be full-time with benefits.
Councilman Davis? You need a mic if you don't mind.
Full year. The full year, 2,080, a single full-time employee, full year.
That includes the 170 hours?
Yes.
170?
Yes, full-time, employee works 2,080 hours a year, and the difference would be the various holidays and so forth that we would not have to pay out or honor if they were contractual. Because that would be all under the umbrella of the contractor.
So this is, you know, kind of based on hours, things like, you know, this is, if you work more hours, if you work over, you know, just the demands are too much, the county is on the hook for more, or is this, you know, we're paying one retainer and you work as much as the demand is, or?
That's basically it. We're going to charge our time for the minutes that we work.
So, okay, so it's, you were charging us hourly.
Right.
And this is an estimate of what the hourly would be over a year, but conceivably it could be more.
Could be
Conceivably
more.
it could be less.
Could be
It's
more,
not
could be less.
it's not a guaranteed retainer for for all the work the county needs. It's an hourly rate. Okay, all right.
I was under the impression your office was giving us a guaranteed retainer rate that would not exceed what our current expenses are in the current budget. Is that true?
We believe that what's in the current budget will be sufficient to cover at 170 an hour for the remainder of the year.
But that's not the guaranteed,
But
it's not a guaranteed
guarantee.
retainer.
The question always often boils down to, if the county were to become involved in a significant litigation
Right.
being very time-consuming,
Right.
that can push a budget up.
We can't guarantee because we don't know whether we have FOP, things like that, things that we have been contracting out of the office for, out of the county. Funkin' Bolton doing some things for the landfill last year. Reviewing leases for Solar City was a $25,000 cost. Paul's office has people that do work with Solar City leases and can verify that, which will not cost us $25,000 a year.
I was only asking, because the last discussion we had, it was stated that it would specifically be on a retainer basis that would be limited to the current budget that we have right now, salaries excluding benefits, and that was the positive side of it.
I don't, you know, I mean, you never know what's going to come up. It was never said that that was going to be their flat fee for their office. I didn't expect, if I made you feel that way, then I'm misled. I was told by Paul and his firm that it should not be any more than what we're currently paying now, which based on that, then minus the benefits, is where we're going to get the $150,000 a year savings. So,
Sure.
My question, at $170 an hour, if you got 2 or 3 lawyers working on something for the county, is that still the fee? Or does each one of those lawyers get $170 an hour?
Each lawyer bills for his time at that rate.
Make sure you have a mic, Paul. Literally, I mean, it's just like this if you don't.
Right.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, obviously, if there's, you know, we get sued or whatever, and there's a big, you know, there's some sort of unforeseen sort of legal expense, that's sort of set aside. I mean, you can negotiate a flat fee of, you know, you can do all of our work, whatever we need for a year for, you know, X amount of dollars, and then set aside if there is a special circumstance, which I think we could obviously recognize in terms of a lawsuit or a very, very involved contract that could be negotiated outside of that. I mean, I'm uncomfortable with having, you know, oh, it should be. Well, it should, it might not be. You know, we need to get all the work done. You know, I know your firm has a lot of experience with government work. I have no idea how much work the county attorneys do, and if you're capable of doing that for this amount of money. I mean, I guess this first year, if we would go forward, we would see that. But I don't like having the idea that we're on the hook, you know, that, you know, the work has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the hook for $170 an hour, and it could be under, or it could be twice the amount. I mean, we don't know. You know, that makes me kind of uncomfortable. I would, my view would be, if we're gonna go this route, which I think is debatable, this is what you're getting, do all the work for us, special circumstances, we can negotiate otherwise, but.
I'm agreeable to that.
It appears to me like we put Part B ahead of Part A. Part A is illegal. Can we do this? Will the charter allow us to reorganize? And that's what we're doing, reorganizing the law department. And can we do this within the charter itself? Is the reorganization defined in the charter?
Reorganization is not defined in the charter, but you're correct that if there is a reorganization, it is an issue that would involve both the county council and the executive. It would not be a unilateral decision because the law department serves both the legislative body and the executive.
So does that mean that the council can refuse to confirm any contract attorney, and which has been proposed, and instruct the executive that only an in-house law department is acceptable?
The way I read the charter is there's a law department set up in the charter. It doesn't specify in-house or contract.
It's very seductive.
Doesn't say we have to keep it in-house and does not say we have to contract it. It was done under the previous administrations to bring the lawyer in-house. It had been contracted for years prior to that. But when the change over the executive form of government, the previous administration decided to bring that attorney in-house. I am deciding not to do that and deciding rather to contract out.
And without concurrence of the council?
No, that's what I'm here.
Eventually you want concurrence.
At this point in time, I would like to have the concurrence of the council to do that, and I'm showing you where I want to aim the law department to. At this point in time, I have just strictly named Mr. Wilbur as the acting director of the law department.
Now, that's only half of what the reason is for being here today, though.
Right. I mean, it is. I want,
Right.
I'm not trying to hide, I'm just trying to bring this out so we can get this out on the table and get going with it. If there's questions, you need to ask Mr. Wilbur.
Yeah, well,
I need to ask Maureen whether this is correct or not.
Yeah, I think this is so premature. Maureen, two questions, whether an acting director can be appointed without the consensus of the council. And the second part of that question would be an acting director. Is that not an employee of Wicomico County?
So, one, an acting director can be appointed without the council
Okay,
for a certain amount of time if you think they are not qualified. If they're not qualified, then there's a time limit. If you think they're qualified to be acting, then there's essentially no time limit, and we've experienced that before. The question you already asked is whether someone outside the county could be acting. That hasn't been asked of me, so I'd have to research that. So I think those were your two questions.
right. Good.
That's just for acting, though.
Understood.
I mean, I know you mentioned it here, time is short, we obviously, going to experience the departure of our current acting, or our current attorney. When would this council need to make a decision in order to get things moving so there is a smooth transition?
I would say the sooner the better,
Well,
because
Well, you would.
yeah.
Why don't we
The thought
defer?
being, Maureen's going to move on to Worcester in the not-too-distant future. And when you transition, I've been involved in these transitions, it takes some time. You know, the council, the executive, you all have, all the departments, everyone has ongoing legal issues, which you need to make sure everyone's briefed in on.
Any other, Councilman Dunn?
Yeah, I know the intent's to save the county money, but I sense there's a lot of uncomfortable people in the room right now, and it's really hard to discuss this, and I appreciate your views. What kind of litigation does this county have going on right now? Can we speak about that? What kind of cases, how many cases? Because I know you had to come up with a figure somewhere for these total hours.
We just pulled actuals from the general ledger for these, the actual cost, and as it hit the general ledgers and the financials.
So
It
it's
doesn't
really
look
not
at open.
considering open
litigation.
cases or
No.
any possible future cases?
No, that was something that would have to be evaluated by Mr. Wilbur.
So that,
And Maureen, as she transitioned.
that situation may go above the current department cost or fees,
Well, if you look at
unless
that-
we discuss a contract that limits what we do.
Wayne, have you got something to add on this? I'd like to go ahead and let them hear your report.
Microphone anywhere? Here, take mine.
Yeah, please.
That's a good idea. In the private sector, I've done this both ways. I've had outside counsel, I've had inside counsel. If constructed properly, it works either way. It's a matter, I think, for the council and the executive to decide. I agree with Paul. The transition period is going to take some time. You have to assess what's in process. We've got to assess what's in process. We have to assess how we go about the practice of law, if you will, because we need to have, and we've been working on standardized contracts. We have to have protocols in place where our employees know when they can proceed on their own, when they can't, and have to contact an attorney. Has to be a protocol in place for when they contact an attorney and the clock starts to run, you know, what level of authority that has to reach in order to engage an attorney. You can do it either way. And I've seen it work effectively either way.
Councilman Cohen?
I guess I have a question about how this firm was selected, and it's no reflection upon the work of the firm or anybody there. You know, obviously, there's a variety of law firms in town. I mean, is this, I understand you don't have to put out, you know, these sort of services to bid. Could we be getting a better deal elsewhere? I mean, how do we know that this is the best value for our
How
money?
much does your wife work for?
She-
Does she want to give a better deal?
She's a salaried employee, so, yeah, for the State's Attorney's Office.
Michelle can answer how it
She
was
can.
done as far as to how it was advertised.
We advertised for a job opening back in March, and we had very few applicants, and the couple applicants we had did not qualify by charter for the position. I think one does not even practice in the state of Maryland. And Mr. Wilbur applied. He submitted in an application resume, and attached to that was also his proposal.
How was it advertised?
It was advertised through the website.
You didn't
The
put
employment, it was employment, so when we advertised it, we did not get a lot of applicants. It was not successful. As for employment, most people apparently would not work for that, the figures we put up, so.
Well, I would think that with a job that's a department head, that it would be advertised in the trade magazines and it would be advertised in the newspaper as well. not just online. Online is usually people who are reaching out trying to find something. We're talking about a position where we want to try to draw the most qualified individual to this county.
I don't have the
To the
actual
county.
advertisement from March, but I can get you that information exactly where it was advertised.
Well, you said it was
Yeah,
advertised
yes,
online.
online, we put it online, we put some things, some jobs on Indeed with the finance director, we put jobs and professional, if they don't charge $500 for an ad, we do have a budget to stay in, some professional magazines, that position was on Indeed and the county website, so.
And I think we have got the most
Yeah.
qualified in-house. I mean, I think in the sense that we've got someone right from our area who has all this experience. I'm not looking to bring in a firm that's currently out of this area. I like somebody who knows Wicomico County, and I don't know of anybody else who is more attuned to knowing Wicomico County, its history, and its good points and its bad points than Paul Wilbur.
Oh, I know Mr. Wilbur very well. I like Mr. Wilbur, and as Mark said, it's nothing to do with Mr. Wilbur. It's just as to what process was followed. There are other attorneys in Wicomico County who have said, "You're hiring for someone?" They weren't aware of it, and that's pretty surprising in a town this size. That there are people in a county this size that there were attorneys that were not aware that there was a formal job opening for this position.
Did it
There was.
specifically say an attorney?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to show it. I trust you.
Well,
I trust
Yeah, I
you.
have the actual job ad in where it was put up on the self-service.
But this was for an in-house attorney to do it,
was
basically
for-
fill Mr. Baker's,
Is for a county attorney,
our county attorney. But
yes.
So Mr. Wilbur approached with this idea of, hey, what about doing it this way instead? So that seems a little bit different way of, I mean, there's a number of law firms in town that may want this sort of business. I mean, this is a pretty big contract.
It wasn't, by the way, just to stop you, it wasn't Mr. Wilbur's point, it was Mr. Culver's point.
Okay.
Saying this is how I wanted to do it rather than, than going in-house and pay all the benefits.
Okay, so
Because-
what was the advertisement for then? Was it?
It was for a county attorney. And then once we went through we only had, one or two that was even qualified?
No, we had none that were
None
qualified.
None that were qualified.
We didn't
based
have
on
any
experience.
qualified.
We ran an ad.
individual.
And
No.
then after that,
That's when I decided I like to go and contract it out.
all right, and then you just said Paul's a good guy to do it?
He
No,
actually,
he had the only application in,
Oh, okay.
Mark, and that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
There was only one application that came in, that was him.
It
I
says-
then talked to him about doing a firm type thing, where
Oh,
we have
okay.
different
Okay. Oh,
lawyers to do different things. Because I know his firm is experienced in government work, many of the lawyers over there are experienced in government work and do several of the small towns within municipalities within Wicomico County.
he submitted on the top application and resume with his proposal.
Any other questions? All right, well, we appreciate you coming in. We'll certainly have to review what you've given us today, and we'll see where we go from here.
Thank you.
Wilbur, good to see you. Next item on the agenda, we have, looking for the council as far as goals, 2015, 2016.
John,
Yes, sir.
when are we going to discuss this on our own?
We'd definitely be having a work session at the next meeting. I don't know if we would schedule a work session prior to our next meeting or not, Larry. I'll have to give it some thought. I want to talk to Mr. Kramer, talk to the law department about it, because we've got a lot of information here that's just been given to us. I think the introduction of Mr. Wilbur was, as Councilman Hall said, was a little bit maybe getting ahead of where we were in our
I mean, I thought we were going to discuss.
Process.
other things, but that's fine.
Moving on, council goals as far as what you would like to see. I want to put that in there just to kind of give you guys, give everybody an opportunity for input as far as what direction you'd like to see the council heading. I didn't know if there are any specifics that you'd like to address. John? Get your mic back, yeah.
Yes, I would.
Good.
As we know, we've changed the construct of the airport, and with the new airport commission that we now have, we become an advisory commission rather than an active management position. And in order for Wicomico County to grow, I think it's very important that we have a focus on the airport for any economic opportunities. And in order to do that, there are a couple of major concerns that need to happen at the airport. One of them is water to the airport. Without water to the airport, we have a number of wells out there now, but they restrict the amount of growth because we can't provide fire suppression systems to major buildings out there, which restricts the size of the buildings, which means restricts the size of the aircraft that can come into these buildings.
John, are you referring to city water to the airport, or?
City water to the airport.
Okay.
Is what we is almost necessary. And I don't think there are any other alternatives except maybe a tower, which is also being discussed. But I think it's very important for the economic future of the airport. The other thing that we need to focus on is eventually there will need to be a fire service on airport property, which will be an expense to the county. And it's something that's mandated by the state. So,
FFA.
Pardon me?
FAA.
Yeah.
You mean to expand?
No.
Actually, it's, yes. it
Are
is
we in
an-
violation now?
No.
Not
So-
at this point. We have qualified people that are serviced by the existing airline at the airport. It's not the airline's desire to continue having these people provide the fire service for the airport.
Okay.
They have different jobs. So I think those should be priorities for the council in the very near future in order for us to show some kind of economic growth in that area.
Okay. Councilman Kilmer?
Well, I think we need to come to some permanent resolution with the impact fee. We have the temporary moratorium going on right now. We need to figure out what we're going to do with that, one way or the other. Raise it like Mr. Hall wants.
I didn't say that, did I?
Are you talking about the first home buyers tax?
Are you throwing a stone at me?
So, I mean, just figure out, so we don't have these temporary measures, keep going on. Something permanent, something to give the building community an idea of what they're gonna face going forward, so. I'd also
No, I'll buy that.
Okay, yeah, just we gotta figure out what to do.
How to do it.
Okay, yeah. I'd also like to see what's going on with the tier map. That's hanging out over our head. That's been out there for years now. Let's see, we just need some resolution on that.
And that would be the comp plan as well, I think. We'd have to,
Is it? Okay.
kind of like, isn't that right, John? We'd have to kind of get an idea on where both of them are heading. It's a good point.
I'd like to raise the issue of repealing the county's red light camera law. That's something that we've.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Repealing the red light camera law, the county.
If I may interject, the county executive terminated that contract.
Okay, that's news.
So the law is still in place, but the contract has been terminated.
Does that mean there are no longer red speed, that those little
Goes
boxes?
through the end of the year.
Is
Excuse
that
me?
the school zone?
Goes through the end of the year.
Just to the end of December or the end to June?
And no, end of December, end of the
December.
calendar year.
But that's only county,
Yeah,
not city,
it's
for
county,
anybody
it's
else
just
that's paying attention. Just county one, county.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, well,
The law is still there, though, Mr. Kilmer. It's
Yeah.
just the actual active contract.
okay, thank you. And then President Cannon and I, we served on the Charter Review Committee a few years ago, and there were
Wow, amen to that.
some changes that that came out of that committee that I would like to explore, maybe put it on the ballot for 2016. I know that that's kind of a longer-term issue, but I think by next summer, we need to decide on anything that needs to go up to the state, to have the state approve the language for the ballot and come back to us. So sometime between now and the summer, we should look at maybe some of those amendments that were suggested by the Charter Review Committee and moving forward with some of those. So that's
Very good. Very good, thank you. Any other council members? Councilman Dunn?
Yeah, I thought Mark was going to jump on it, but we're working on it. Finish the elected school board issue. Hopefully, we'll put that to bed. It's been discussed, I think, 12 years, and now we are having more hearings, and hopefully we'll get through with that. one thing that I've always said, and I said during my campaign, and I think Mr. Culver said as well, and Mr. Hall brought it up, I really do think that in the near future, the county needs to consider doing its own water and sewer. I think there are counties surrounding us, all of them, that have some form of water and sewer, and I think we're too dependent on the municipalities. And I also like to think that we need to consider what's going on with the UAAA softball contract and what we're going to have to do for property surrounding that ball field, or we're going to have to do a different location. But I think that needs to be discussed in the near future. As you know, what happened with the city last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got other thoughts, but I'd keep it myself right now.
Okay, Councilman Davis?
You guys covered a lot. Only thing I can really think of is the fire issue. If we could put the rest of what we're going to do with these fires, because we got a lot of people concerned about what's going to happen in the near future if their house gets on fire, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. I think what we'll have to do is probably try to itemize, some these issues that we have, because in some cases, the council does need to take initiatives. In some other instances, we're also going to have to work closely with the executive in order to make sure this comes to fruition. I think, we saw the City of Salisbury's vote last night where they chose not to transfer the land. And of course, my first thought was maybe this county council should have had more participation with one-on-one with the city council to try to, alleviate any concerns that they might have had, whether or not, I understand that, we need to allow the executive to take the initiative and to work with either the mayor or the city council. But at the same time, I think maybe it is, it's a responsibility of ours to also see how we can, take whatever measures necessary to move things forward as well. And there may have been something we could have salvaged if we had tried to work independently, one-on-one with them as well. So it's sort of a combination between the two of, how we execute our responsibilities and, not interfere with the executive, but try to work in concert with the executive. As Councilman Davis said, the fire service agreement, yeah, that's very important for us to stay on top of and to know how it's moving forward, even though as it is currently, the negotiations have been pretty much left between the executive and members of the council, even though I have had the opportunity to attend those, but maybe a more important role. So we'll look at how these are. I had on my list, of course, the wastewater septic system, because I do think that's critical. We have systems that are failing. I had talked to, I think it was Keith Hall, and I said, well, aren't there 700 failing septic systems in Wicomico County? And he said, well, that's on one road. I won't mention the road. So it is becoming a problem, and I think this is the prime time to do that, because the state of Maryland is looking to give as many benefits as they can, as many WIP credits as possible. And if we can, with the way that it is now, Delegate Anderton's here, I think the state effort is to try to see, help the states, help the counties in any way they can to try to, move forward with these septic systems, recognizing those problems. And economic development was another one I mentioned before. We know that the executive is working towards establishing this department, but I think, we still need to express what we think that, the best measures might be to move forward with economic development. And at some point in time, I'm not so sure the county shouldn't take it upon themselves to establish our own committee for economic development with individuals from the university and from local, from the chamber, from DBED. I believe I'd like to see those people here talking to us about what we could do in economic development, understanding that we'll have a department at one point in time, but still I think it's our obligation to look at those whatever avenues are open, anything that's possible. So I appreciate that. We'll take this into consideration and develop a continued items on the agenda as we go forward here. Any other comments from anyone? No?
I just think the county executive probably should have been sitting here with this and discuss priorities and goals as well. Because we do need to work together, like you said, with the county executive on some of these priorities.
Well, I wanted to see what the county, I just want to see what the council's concerns were first. And of course, everything we have on the table here, we would be sharing with the executive. I mean, he's aware of all of these as much as we are, and certainly we want to work hand in hand with the executive in achieving all these goals. Sure, it has, yeah, the county is who we're concerned about as a whole. Okay, seeing none, entertain a motion to close the work session so we can go into closed session.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Carl,